So can you even just talk about, going into something that you knew you probably didn't want to do long term, and then also balancing kind of almost a double duty of the temporary work and the bartending, and how you kind of started to um, insert yourself throughout the Bulls organizations to kind of make yourself indispensable?
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I think if there was a piece of advice I would give to people starting out, nothing is ever permanent, right? You have the flexibility to make a change anytime you want. That's the power you have as an employee, right? And that kind of was how I sold myself on taking that role with the Bulls initially. Is like, I don't have to stay here forever. If it's a miserable existence and I'm failing and I'm not making any money, well then I'll go out and find a new job. And it's scary. I'm not going to lie. It was really scary because I was on my own living in the city of Chicago and having to pay bills, and it's stressful. But you do what you need to do. And so, yes, I found some, compensatory, revenue opportunities by bartending at night. And it just was, I look back and I'm not remembering the worst parts of it. I'm just remembering the good parts, but it just was, I knew it was a temporary thing.
You mentioned earlier taking on more opportunities, and I wanted to know how did you either volunteer or get different assignments like doing the programming, and how did you know that was the right one to take on without taking on too much at the time?
It's just case by case. I knew I had certain strengths, and I knew that writing and speaking were kind of things that I had learned over time through college, and it was a muscle that I still didn't want to give up on, and I wanted to flex it a bit. And frankly, I knew that at the end of the day, not all 10 interns were going to get full-time jobs. So it was a combination of just figuring out what my skill set was and how it differed from the others, and how I could, rise above the others and compete. It was a competition, right? And some may have just looked at it as a resume builder. I was looking at it as a career trajectory given my interest in sports. So I didn't want to waste this opportunity and just put it on a resume as a line item and then move on to the next thing. I really wanted a job with the Bulls. It was my hometown. It was a great team, blah, 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 blah. So I just looked around, and and just in talking with other leaders of various verticals within the company, found out what they were working on. And, of course, I had no business talking to the head general counsel and asking him for me to volunteer on something that just wasn't my area of expertise. But I looked around and saw like where I could plug in. And again, Howie, like a lot of it wasn't highbrow stuff. I mean, it was moving chairs and hanging banners and just showing that I was in it for the long haul and that I wanted to be a part of the team. And no, and granted, I was fortunately in a good position where I had good writing skills, where I could do something like that. But not everything that I volunteered for, a majority of rather, was highbrow. I mean, it didn't require any kind of special skill set. I just wanted to show my work ethic is going to beat your work ethic, at the end of the day. And and ultimately, only a couple interns got hired, and it was the two of us that, truly really put it all out there and volunteered. And again, because I had already been in the workforce for about a year and a half, maybe I had a little bit better of a perspective on what it takes to kind of advance. But it's something I've used my whole career.
Because you were so attached to the Bulls, and that's, was kind of part of your life at some point, something you enjoyed a lot. Making career changes in any sense is not easy to do. Moving to a new company, new life, new relationships, and for you, leaving the Bulls must have been incredibly hard. So, but you did. You moved on to NASCAR in 2012 as their director of event marketing services. So, how did you get recruited? How did you find that job, and what made you leave the Bulls? A passion of yours for that role.
So networking is what provided me the opportunity to explore a different avenue. I felt after 19 years that I had kind of done what I could do at the Bulls. It's still, I mean, when I left, it was a fairly small company. Most teams are, and I felt like I had done what I still had interest in. And when I was younger, admittedly, I was scared of change. Change was something that frightened me. Some people can jump at a moment's notice to a different job. I wasn't that person. And so I think over that 19 years, I probably could have left earlier, but I chose not to for a variety of reasons.
You mentioned having mentors, and I think that's really important and something that we definitely try and provide here at ProMazo. So your path of getting to the C-suite, in any organization, that's not simple, getting there by any means. It takes skill and mastery of your craft. But can you tell us about meaningful experiences or learning opportunities that were given to you from a mentor or elsewhere that helped you kind of get there?
Well, I mean, the one that resonates the most is the one we just talked about, and that was, I reached out to my mentor and I kind of laid it on the line, like, hey, I could stay at the Bulls forever, right? I've got a job here as long as I want it. But here's this opportunity at NASCAR. What do you think? And he was point blank. He's like, you got to take that. And I just was curious. I'm like, why? He's like, because it's gonna challenge you to think differently, and it's gonna take you out of your comfort zone. And he's like, and I know that that's not going to be the last job you have at NASCAR. And I'm thinking, I said, so I'm already thinking about the next job I have at NASCAR, not even thinking about the job I'm getting hired for. And I hadn't really thought that far ahead. But he's older. He's now retired. But he had that perspective. And I think that's the best thing that you can get from mentors is just perspective. And sometimes they might give you bad advice, but at least they've kind of been there and they've had similar kinds of experiences, and they can say, and they can hopefully shoot you straight and just say, look, dude, you've been there for 19 years. It's time to go, and it's time to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And just like what's the worst thing that could happen, right? You move down to Florida, the job doesn't work out. Okay. So you kind of regroup and you find another thing. Nobody's dying in your family. Like real problems aren't going to happen.